Wow. I bet you weren't expecting this.
No kidding.
It's November 6th, 2024, and the news is just dropping bombshells left and right.
Yeah.
We're diving deep today into the Associated Press reporting
Okay.
with their article, Trump Wins the White House in a Political Comeback Rooted in Appeals to Frustrated Voters.
Right.
Buckle up, folks. This is going to be a wild ride as we try to figure out how this happened and what it
Yeah.
means for all of us.
It's certainly a twist in the tale of American politics. To have a former president, especially one who faced so much controversy, return to power is a truly rare occurrence.
Right.
I mean, the last time we saw this was over a century ago with Grover Cleveland back in 1892.
Okay, so let's unpack this a little bit.
Sure.
The headline itself is a doozy. Trump wins the White House.
Yep.
Donald Trump, the 45th president,
Right.
is now the 47th president of the United States.
And it's important to remember the context here. This isn't just a regular election victory.
Yeah.
This is a comeback story like no other, especially considering everything that's happened in the past 4 years.
Yeah.
Trump's refusal to accept the 2020 results, the January 6th Capitol riot,
Right.
a felony conviction,
Yeah.
and even 2 assassination attempts.
It's almost unbelievable when you lay it all out like that.
Yeah.
And he didn't just squeak by either.
No, he didn't.
He flipped key states, too.
Exactly. Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, those blue wall states that swung for Biden in 2020,
Right.
they're back in the red column. This
Yeah.
isn't just a win.
Right.
It's a potential seismic shift in the electoral map.
So how did he pull this off?
Well,
The article points to his bare knuckles style of politics.
right.
But what does that even mean in this context?
Think of it as a no-holds-barred approach.
Okay.
Trump didn't shy away from personal attacks,
Uh-huh.
especially against Kamala Harris.
Right.
His rhetoric often painted a very bleak picture of the nation,
Yeah.
almost apocalyptic at times.
Wow.
And this resonated with a segment of the population, particularly men who felt deeply frustrated with the status quo.
The article specifically mentions that his messaging seemed to connect more strongly with men.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Is there more to that?
There's definitely a gendered aspect to this victory that's worth examining.
Okay.
Trump tapped into a sense of disillusionment and anger among some male voters,
Right.
particularly those who felt left behind economically or culturally.
Uh-huh.
This is where the idea of hypermasculinity comes into play.
Okay.
His assertive, even aggressive style, combined with his focus on traditional gender roles
Right.
and a promise to restore a perceived lost sense of power, appeal to a certain demographic.
So it's not just about policies. It's about a certain image and attitude that resonated with specific groups.
Precisely. It's about tapping into deep-seated anxieties and offering a seemingly straightforward solution,
Right.
even if those solutions are overly simplistic or potentially harmful in the long run.
So amidst all this chaos,
Yeah.
how did the other side react?
Well, both Kamala Harris and Joe Biden conceded gracefully.
Okay.
They congratulated Trump and even invited him to the White House, formally kicking off the transition process.
That's at least a sign of stability amidst the turmoil.
It is a peaceful transition of power is essential for any democracy.
Yeah.
And these initial steps suggest there's at least a willingness to work within the system,
Okay.
even after such a divisive election. But make no mistake,
Yeah.
there are some serious challenges on the horizon for the incoming administration.
Like what specifically?
For starters, Trump is inheriting a nation that's deeply divided politically.
Right.
The political polarization we've seen in recent years is at an all-time high.
Yeah.
And that's not going to magically disappear overnight. Plus, there are global crises impacting U.S. influence on the world stage.
Right.
These are complex issues that require diplomacy and collaboration, something Trump hasn't always been known for.
And let's not forget the internal struggles the country is facing, economic anxieties, concerns about crime,
Right.
and anxieties surrounding immigration.
All very real issues that have fueled a sense of unease and frustration among many Americans.
Right.
Trump successfully tapped into that frustration during his campaign.
Uh-huh.
But now he's tasked with actually addressing
Yeah.
these problems, which is a whole different ballgame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally different.
Totally.
So we've established that Trump's victory is deeply rooted in tapping into feelings of frustration and anxiety.
Right.
But if we look at the stock market's reaction,
Yeah.
Tesla's stock is up, banks are soaring.
Mm-hmm.
Even Bitcoin got a boost.
Interesting.
Wouldn't that suggest a sense of optimism, not anxiety?
It's a fascinating paradox, isn't it?
Yeah.
The market, at least initially, often reflects short-term sentiment and the potential for profit.
Okay.
Certain sectors see a Trump presidency as beneficial to their bottom line, hence the initial surge.
Right.
But those numbers don't tell the whole story.
You're saying there's a disconnect between Wall Street's celebration
Yeah.
and Main Street's reality.
Exactly. That's where the deeper dive comes in. The AP article highlighted economic anxiety as a major factor in this election.
Right.
And it's crucial to understand why.
Yeah.
Trump was masterful at channeling the very real concerns of everyday Americans who are struggling with rising costs of living, stagnant wages, and a sense that the system isn't working for them.
He painted a picture of a nation in decline, and for many that resonated with their experiences, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
They feel it when they go grocery shopping or fill up their gas tank.
Precisely. And that feeling of being squeezed, of falling behind, is a powerful motivator.
Yeah.
It creates a sense of urgency,
Right.
a desire for change, even if that change comes in the form of a candidate who offers simple solutions to complex problems.
Which is what Trump did so effectively.
Yeah.
He pointed fingers at immigrants, at enemies within the government, at global forces. It was all very us versus them.
And that's a key element of his appeal.
Right.
In a world that feels increasingly complex and out of control.
Yeah.
He offered a narrative that was easy to understand, a clear enemy to rally against.
Okay.
It's a classic populist tactic.
Uh-huh.
And it clearly worked.
But isn't that dangerous?
It can be.
I mean, oversimplification often leads to misguided solutions.
Absolutely, and that's one of the major concerns moving forward.
Right.
Trump thrived on conflict, on painting the world in black and white, good versus evil.
Okay.
But governing effectively requires nuanced diplomacy,
Yeah.
a willingness to compromise.
Right.
And those are qualities that haven't been hallmarks of his leadership style.
Plus, he's not stepping into the same world he left 4 years ago.
Right. The global landscape has shifted.
Yeah.
New powers have emerged. Alliances have been strained. And the U.S. faces challenges on multiple fronts, economically, politically,
Right.
and in terms of its global standing.
So even if the markets are initially optimistic,
Yeah,
the reality is much more complex and potentially much more volatile.
precisely. And that brings us to the heart of the matter. How will Trump, with his particular brand of leadership, navigate these unprecedented challenges?
That's a question that's going to keep a lot of people up at night, I think.
Yeah, I think so too.
But beyond the immediate anxieties, there's a bigger question looming, right?
You're talking about his vision for this second term.
Exactly. What does a Trump presidency 2.0 actually look like?
Right.
We know he's hinted at some pretty radical changes, and I think our listeners are eager to get into the specifics. All right, so let's get into the nitty-gritty.
Okay.
What exactly is on Trump's agenda for this second term?
Right.
We know he's not one to shy away from bold pronouncements and controversial policies.
No, he's not.
Where do we even begin?
Well, the article gives us some clues.
Okay.
One of the most striking elements is his vow to launch what he calls the largest deportation effort in U.S. history.
Wow.
This isn't just a continuation of his previous hardline stance on immigration.
Right.
It signals a potential escalation that could have profound consequences.
It sounds almost like a scene from a dystopian movie, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Mass deportations, families torn apart.
Yeah.
What would the actual impact of something like that even look like?
It's hard to overstate the potential human cost.
Right.
Beyond the ethical concerns,
Yeah.
there are logistical and economic questions that need to be addressed.
Okay.
How would such a massive undertaking be carried out?
Right.
What would the impact be on industries that rely on immigrant labor?
Yeah.
These are questions that demand serious consideration.
And then there's his plan to use the Department of Justice to target what he calls his enemies.
Yeah?
That sends chills down my spine.
It's a deeply troubling prospect.
Yeah.
Weaponizing the legal system for political purposes undermines the very foundation of a democracy.
Right.
It creates a climate of fear and distrust where anyone who disagreed with the administration could become a target.
Wow.
We have to remember that the DOJ is meant to be an independent body,
Yeah.
upholding the law fairly and impartially,
Right.
not serving as a tool for political vendettas.
It's like something out of a history book, a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked power.
Exactly. And it's a reminder that the institutions we often take for granted are only as strong as our commitment to upholding their integrity.
Okay, so we've got mass deportations and the potential for political persecution.
Right.
What else is on the menu?
Well, his stance on trade seems to be heading in a protectionist direction.
Okay.
He's talked about expanding tariffs, which could spark trade wars and destabilize the global economy.
So instead of America first, it's more like America alone.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
This isolationist approach could backfire, hurting American businesses and consumers while alienating allies who rely on trade partnerships with the U.S.
Right.
It's a risky gamble that could have far-reaching consequences.
And speaking of risky gambles, what about his foreign policy? He's
Yeah.
already shown a willingness to disrupt long-standing alliances like NATO during his first term.
Yes, and that unpredictability is what worries many foreign policy experts. His America First rhetoric often translates into an unwillingness to engage in multilateral diplomacy or honor international agreements.
Yeah.
This could further destabilize an already volatile global landscape, emboldening adversaries and leaving allies questioning America's reliability.
So it seems like we're entering a period of profound uncertainty, both domestically and internationally.
It seems that way.
It's a lot to process, honestly.
It is, and that's why it's more important than ever to stay informed, to engage in critical thinking, and to participate in the democratic process.
Okay.
The choices we make in the coming years will determine the direction of this nation. This isn't just about Trump.
Right.
It's about all of us and the kind of future we want to create.
That's a powerful message. So where do we go from here?
Well, this deep dive has been about understanding the present by examining the past and considering the future.
Yeah.
We've explored the factors that led to this unexpected outcome,
Right.
the underlying anxieties and frustrations that fueled it, and the potential consequences of Trump's second-term agenda.
Yeah.
Now it's up to each of us to grapple with this information, to stay engaged, and to make our voices heard.
I think that's a perfect note to end on. This has been a wild ride, and I have a feeling it's just the beginning. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into one of the most consequential elections in American history. Stay curious, stay informed, and most importantly, stay engaged.